Would you state your name, please?
Juan Torres.
And Mr. Torres, what do you do for a living?
I am retired. Currently, I work for the State Department, and I work in Honduras right now.
You work for the State Department in Honduras.
Yes.
And when did you retire?
I retired in April of 2024.
What did you do before you retired?
I was, my last 11 years, I was a Texas Ranger.
And before you were a Texas Ranger, what did you do?
Well, in 1995, I started the academy. I was a state trooper for 8 years. I then went to become a Highway Patrol sergeant in El Paso for 5 years.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What was that?
I was a Highway Patrol sergeant
Highway Patrol.
in El Paso for 5 years. I worked narcotics for about 5 years, and then I finished my career as a Texas Ranger the last 11 years.
Okay. And what did you do as a Texas Ranger? Did you have specific assignments?
I was a like a 3D scanner. I was a firearms instructor. I attended the National Forensics Academy in Tennessee for 10 weeks in 2016. I was a crime scene instructor as well.
And so as a result of that, did you also work crime scenes?
I worked many crime scenes, yes.
And have you worked mass shooting crime scenes?
I've worked 4 mass shooting crime scenes.
And what 4 were those?
Sutherland Springs in 2016, the Walmart shooting in El Paso in 2019, the Odessa mass shooting in 2019, and Uvalde.
Those are the 4 that you've worked.
Yes.
So mass shootings have become part of law enforcement. Is that correct?
I'm just going to object to any mention of any other shootings or anything like that, and continuing on this line of questioning.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Go ahead.
And you did work the Uvalde
Yes, I did.
crime scene, is that correct?
Yes.
And when did you arrive?
I arrived on the 24th around 11 o'clock at night, and then the 25th, a little after 7 in the morning, is when we had our briefing and started working.
And during the briefing, did you get an assignment?
I was assigned to be the photographer
And the photographer where?
for room 111.
Did the crime scene units break up into different teams?
Yes, so like I know 112 had a different team, the hallway had a different team. Once I got assigned to room 111, I stayed there and I basically just stayed in my lane.
Okay, so basically you were in room 111.
Yes.
And would you give us a general description of room 111?
When we got there, the room was in disarray. There was some markings in the room. There was a lot of shell casings. There was a lot of blood swipes, and the weapon was in the closet.
Okay. And did you photograph the weapon of the gunman?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And as to the cartridge casings, did you photograph the cartridge casings?
Yes, I did.
And so shots were being fired inside room 111?
Yes, there was.
And were there results of those shots in the room also?
Yes.
And are casings implanted within that blood?
Yes.
So some of the photographs we see of casings, that's where you saw them,
Yes.
and that's where you picked them up.
Yes.
As part of a crime scene, do you also document then the pathways, if you can, of the bullet?
Yes.
And did you do that?
I assisted with that part.
You took photographs of that too?
Yes.
And does that include those rods showing the directionality?
Yes, they are.
In addition to casings, was there anything, casings and a weapon, was there any other part of a weapon that you recovered there in room 111?
There was bullet fragments, bullets, unspent cartridge cases, and a Hellfire that's attached to the weapon.
The Hellfire trigger system?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. What kind of weapon was it?
It was a down defense M4.
And are you familiar with that weapon?
It's the same weapon that the department carries.
The department carries the same weapon?
Yes.
And is it an automatic, semi-automatic, or is it a revolver type weapon that maintains the casings?
It's a semi-automatic.
And so when it is fired, does it eject casings?
Yes, it does.
And is that what you were recovering out there?
Yes, we were.
And how is the ammunition fed into the weapon?
Through a magazine?
Did you recover magazines at the scene?
Yes, we did.
And were they full or empty?
Some were full, some were empty, some were damaged.
Okay. And what was the size of the magazines? How much would they hold?
I believe they hold 30 rounds
Each.
one.
And have you had a chance to review exhibits 317 through 486 before coming here today?
Yes.
And are each of those exhibits fair and accurate representations of the crime scene as you saw it?
Yes, they are.
And is it fair to say that because they're casings, they're in blood also? Is that correct?
Yes, they are.
May we display it now, Your Honor? Those exhibits to the jury.
Yeah, Your Honor, I have something I'd like to approach on with that.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience. Turning to Exhibit 319. Excuse me, Exhibit 317. Could you tell us what room that you work on at Robb Elementary?
May I say that?
You know,
It's going to be room 111.
and would you point that out again so that we can all see that? So would that be on the east side of the fourth grade wing?
Yes, it would.
And so the west side of the fourth grade wing,
Yes.
if there's been testimony of people being evacuated from the west side of that wing, that would be on the opposite side of room 111,
Yes, it would.
where you found this room with all of the cartridges in the blood. Is that
Yes,
correct?
correct.
And State's Exhibit 318. Could you tell us what we're looking at here?
This is the outside of the east wing. And
So it's
windows.
starting to show us the outside of the
Yes.
east wing. And is there a white patrol car in that photograph?
yes, there is.
Would you point that out for us? And State's Exhibit 319, does that move down the east wing?
Your Honor, I'd just like to, I mean, he's pointed out a white patrol car, that was not my client's, it's Donald Page's, and he didn't. I think that has a tendency to make them believe, make the jury believe that it's my client. I think he should explain that patrol car.
It will be explained in full, Your Honor.
Okay.
That was one of the-
I'll overrule the objection at this time. You can proceed.
And State's Exhibit 319,
Yes.
excuse me, would you go back to 319? Can you see a defect in a window in Exhibit 319?
Yes.
Would you point that out for the jury? And State's Exhibit 320. Does that close in on that defect?
Yes.
And Exhibit 321. Thank you. You can have a seat. Would you tell the jury whether or not that was that defect in that window, whether or not that defect was part of room 111?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so one shot came through the window on the east side of the building.
Yes.
And then did you, I want to orient the jury as to room 11, so let's move to Exhibit 322. Could you tell us what we're looking at here?
That's the front door to room 111.
And what condition did you find it in?
Had bullet holes and bullet holes through the window. There was one bullet hole through the door, and another indention through the door.
And State's Exhibit 323, does that also show that it's classroom 111 and a close-up of the damage done to the...
Yes, it does.
Okay. And then as we open the door and start our way inside, would you describe what we see in Exhibit 325?
That's the inside. That's the inside of the room 111. Doors closed. You can see bloody drag marks going out of room 111.
And is there a piece of either weaponry or ammunition in that exhibit?
Yes. There's the magazine and a few shell casings.
Okay. And are the shell casings marked?
Yes, they are.
How are they marked?
They're marked with yellow arrows and orange arrows.
Okay. Could you tell us then how you went about, what were the steps you took in processing this crime scene?
Initially, we went in as a team. Our team leader gave us a brief of the room. We tried to identify as many defects, as many as much evidence as we could identify before we started marking or anything else. Then I went in by myself and started doing overall pictures on the entire room.
And the small yellow markers, is that the only markers that y'all had for recovering the cartridges?
Yes.
Okay. Did you thereafter use orange tints, bigger markers?
When we got there, we started using orange markers and orange tints.
Okay, thank you. State Exhibit 326, does this kind of start a rotation look around the room?
Yes, it does.
Give us an idea of the entire picture. So Exhibit 326, could you tell us what we're looking at?
It's a bookshelf. The same magazine is in the same picture. There's yellow markings identifying bullets or spent cartridge cases.
And State's Exhibit 327.
Again, there's a bookshelf with yellow markers marking spent shell casings along with blood.
And Exhibit 329.
That's a easel board that's been damaged. There's bullet defects in the easel board.
And does that show continuation down that wall, the left wall, if you walk into the
Yes, it does.
room? And is there a doorway in that photograph?
There's partial doorway in that photograph. Yes, there is.
And tell us about that doorway.
That's the closet where the gunman was killed.
And is that on the right-hand side?
It's on the right-hand side.
And on the left-hand side, was there a connecting doorway between 111 and 112?
Yes, there is. That's the door between the wall that would connect 111 and 112.
So you could move from 111 to 112 if the doorway is open.
Correct.
And is that shown on the left-hand side of the photograph?
Yes, it is.
Exhibit 331. Excuse me, 330. Is this a continuation down now the second wall?
Yes, it is.
And what do we see there?
We have the sink. We have the closet where the gunman was found deceased. The weapon is in the background. There
Would you
are
point
two.
out the weapon, where the weapon was?
Oh, it's right here.
And were you there when the gunman was there?
No, I was not.
Okay, so you can't tell us where the gunman was in relationship to the weapon.
No, I cannot.
Thank you. Exhibit 331.
Again, it's a continuation of the room. There's a desk, a bunch of papers, a wall, and there's a flat screen TV that's been shot as well.
Excuse me, you said two things had been shot?
The wall's been shot, and the television, the flat screen television, has been shot in that picture as well.
Okay. And showing you Exhibit 334?
So now I'm in the other corner of the room and just taking an overall photograph. There's sunglasses. There's one magazine that I can see, and some markers in there at the bottom where the shell casings are found as well.
And earlier in your presentation, you told us about one of the windows was penetrated.
Yes.
Is that the window on the right-hand side?
Yes, it is.
Exhibit 335. Could you describe that for us?
That's a continuation of the same room, same wall, into the other wall. Again, it shows the television. The desks are in array, and the beginning of the whiteboard on the other wall.
Okay. And is this a fair and accurate depiction of the absence of blood along this western wall of room 111?
Yes, it is.
And Exhibit 336.
That's the whiteboard on that wall. You can see the chairs are thrown around. Backpack on top of the desk.
And is there still an absence of blood along this side of the wall?
Correct. There's an absence of blood.
But now as we head to the corner of that room, does the scene change as far as the presence of blood?
It changes dramatically.
And how would you describe that?
A lot of bullet holes, a lot of shell casings covered in blood, a lot of bullet defects, perforations, penetrations, and just a lot of blood.
And that's what we're about to see now.
Yes, we are.
Showing you State's Exhibit 337. Could you describe what we're seeing here?
Again, that's that whiteboard on that wall. There's a basketball. A lot of shoe impressions. There's a tennis shoe covered in blood. You can start seeing the yellow markers that have already been placed there for the Smith shell casings, and you can see the drag marks.
Okay, the children were all removed before you took any photographs, is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that indications of the children being removed?
Yes, it is.
And Exhibit 341, does it show an overall picture then of the hallway? Excuse me, 342.
Yes, it does.
Of this, of the corner.
Yes.
And is this the corner farthest from the windows as well as farthest from the door?
Yes, it is.
And is that where the preponderance of the blood was recovered?
Yes, it was.
Showing you State's Exhibit 343. Are there, do you see blood there both on the floor as well as on the wall?
Yes, I do.
Would you point it out on the wall, please?
Blood splatter right here, along right here, and blood splatter right here.
And what is the structure that we're looking at that is in front of that wall?
That's the desk that the children were told to hide underneath and basically stay quiet.
Okay. So that's a desk all along that wall?
All along the wall. Yes, it is.
Thank you. Exhibit 344.
That's the continuing desk. It's a copy machine.
And are we now about to make the complete 360 rotation of the room?
360, because that's the entry door on the right.
And once again, Exhibit 345, that would be the entry door.
Correct.
345?
Yes, that's the entry door.
Thank you. Now, one of the things that you determined not only is picking up cartridges, did you also, were you able to determine flight path of the path of the bullets after they left the gun?
Yes,
And is that-
I assisted with that,
Okay, and you photographed that?
and I photographed that as well.
And I want to direct your attention specifically to that far left corner that we just talked about, away from the door, away from the glass.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 351. Could you tell us what we're looking at here?
This is where we're trying to mark the bullet defects and any corresponding bullet defects as well.
And how did you mark the bullet defects?
I didn't mark them, and I don't remember who marked them, but I know they were marked RBD and such number.
I guess I'm just asking, what indicates on that photograph that there are markings for bullet defects?
The white stickers.
The white stickers?
Yes.
Each one marks a bullet defect,
Yes, it does.
whether a full
Full or partial.
bullet or a piece?
Or a piece,
of bullet.
correct.
In addition to the wall, are there any bullet defects on that table or the decks that ran along that hallway wall?
There's going to be bullet defects on the table, bullet defects on the poles that are holding up the table, and the side, the walls. There's bullet defects everywhere.
Thank you. And State's Exhibit 352. What are we looking at here?
This is where we started placing the rods into the bullet defects and also into the corresponding bullet defects.
And so that shows where the bullets entered the desk covering
The children.
that wall.
Yes.
and the children. State's Exhibit 355. Tell us what we're looking at here.
It's the same thing. So you have trajectory rods going against that wall, and then also down where the desk is and behind the wall, behind the desk, into the wall,
So some shots penetrated the desk and then went in a downward angle.
in a downward angle. Correct.
And on the wall, do you likewise have rods?
Yes, we do.
And do those also show directionality?
Yes.
And as to the rods on the left, could you explain those to us also?
So that's just the rod showing where, in the general area where the shooter was standing, because those rods are going from right to left, and then the rods going into the desk and behind the wall are going from top down.
Top down?
So it's different angles.
So was the gun in a different position when those pathways were fired?
Judge, I'll object to vague speculation. I'm not really sure what he means by different position, and I don't know if this witness has to.
All right, if you'll rephrase it, I'll sustain the objection.
Thank you. You talked about these rods,
Yes.
and what do the rods describe?
It describes the position where the shooter was standing.
Okay. And so if we follow the rod up for some time, we can find the position of the shooter.
Yes.
And are those rods all consistent with the shooter standing in the same position to fire the shots that left those rod impressions?
Yes, they are.
In the same position?
As he's moving around.
Oh, as he's moving around.
Correct.
I guess what I'm saying is, are the rods to the left-hand side of the photograph, is the position of the gun in a different position than when it is shooting down?
Correct. Yes, they are.
Sorry, didn't make a very good question there. And Exhibit 356. Could you tell us what we're looking at here?
Again, the same bullet defects starting from the top to the bottom, and so the bullets defects on top of the table down to the bottom of the wall. We didn't notice this before until afterwards, but the rod that is pointing down actually fell, and nobody caught it until afterwards when we were reviewing the pictures as well.
So that's not an accurate depiction of the pathway of the bullet?
Not that rod.
Okay. But nonetheless, as well as the rods, does that also accurately show the blood spatter on the wall behind and underneath that desk?
Yes, it does.
State's Exhibit 357.
Again, so they have the rods going top left down, and that same rod has still not been corrected.
Okay. And then at the very top of that photograph, what do we see there?
On the top left, there's a LOL.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the top rod, the pink rod.
Yes.
They said I said 350. I go from 382 to 383. Could you describe that?
It's marker number 16 with a spent shell casing.
Okay. And the next exhibit?
Marker number 16 with a spent shell casing.
That's a close-up of
A
it.
close-up, yes.
And 385.
That's an overall. So we have 22, 17, 18, 19, and they are going to be spent shell casings as well.
And then do you close in and pick up each one of those exhibits individually?
Yes.
In our next exhibit, marker 17.
That's number 17 with an L scale, yes.
And marker 18, exhibit 386.
A spent shell casing with the L scale.
Exhibit 387.
It's going to be marker 19, spent shell casing with an L shell.
Exhibit 388.
It's going to be number 21 and 20, spent shell casings.
And isn't that in a different location altogether in the room?
Yes, that's going to be towards the back wall where the whiteboard is.
Where all the whiteboard was?
Yes.
Thank you. And exhibit 389.
That's a spent shell casing with the scale as well.
390.
A spent shell casing with the L scale.
And 391.
That's an overall of 4 markers with spent shell casings.
Okay. And marker number 22. Next one, please.
That's a spent shell casing with a L scale marked as number 22.
Exhibit. I think I got these out of order. No. 392. What does that show us?
It's number 23.
And exhibit number 393.
Again, number 23, but that's a live, unfired cartridge.
Exhibit 395.
It's number 24 with the spent shell casing with the L scale.
Exhibit 396.
Number 25 with the spent shell casing and the L scale.
397.
That's a spent shell casing.
Is it,
That's a
is it a
different-
different shell casing?
Yes, it is.
Tell us the difference.
That's from a pistol. That's going to be from a semi-automatic pistol.
From a pistol?
Yes.
Did you recover any pistol on or about the gunman?
No.
Is this also the room that law enforcement eventually breached?
Yes, it is.
And did they carry with them their own weapons?
Yes, they did.
Is this an indication that a weapon was fired other than the long rifle that the gunman had?
Correct.
And how would you characterize the weapon that fired this?
I don't know exactly what weapon they fired, but I know it's going to be a semi-automatic pistol.
A pistol, a
Yes.
handgun as opposed to a rifle?
Correct.
And exhibit 398.
It's a spent shell casing with the L scale.
399.
A spent shell casing with the L scale.
And 400.
Another spent shell casing in dry blood with the L scale.
Exhibit 401.
A spent shell casing in blood as well.
Exhibit 402.
It's another spent shell casing with L scale and blood.
And does exhibit 403 show general locations of the next exhibits?
Yes, it does.
Exhibit 404.
More spent cartridge casings as well.
Excuse me, I have this as exhibit 403. Okay.
The 32 and 35 are shell casings as well.
And Exhibit 404? That's all. Could you tell us what that is?
That's a spent shell casing with L scale.
And Exhibit 405?
Another spent shell casing in blood with the L scale.
Exhibit 406?
A spent shell casing with the L scale.
And 47? 407, excuse me.
That's in
406 and 407.
There's a spent shell casing with L scale, and there's another casing on top.
And that was 33.
Probably.
Exhibit 408?
A spent shell casing, 2 spent shell casings, 3. There's 4 shell casings there.
4 shell
4.
casings there?
Yes.
And 409?
There's 2 spent shell casings in blood with the L scale.
410?
It's overall of the markers with spent shell casings as well.
And this is just north of that hallway wall
Yes.
toward the center of the room?
Yes.
411?
It's a spent shell casing with an L scale.
412?
That's another spent shell casing with the L scale.
Number 413?
That's 2 spent shell casings with the L scale.
414?
There's 3 spent shell casings in there with an L scale as well.
415?
There's 3 rifle shell casings and 1 pistol shell casing with L scale.
And would you point out the pistol shell casing? Indicating the pistol was fired now twice in that room.
Yes.
Thank you. Exhibit 416?
That spent pistol shell casing.
That you just described.
Yes.
Exhibit 417?
2 spent rifle shell casings with L scale and blood.
And when you say spent shell casings...
They've been
just-
fired.
Just to be clear, that a gun has gone off, powder burned, causing an explosion, making sound.
Correct.
For each one of these cases.
For each one that's spent, yes, it's been fired.
Exhibit 418?
Shell casings on top of the desk, marked 34 and 43.
And 419?
The spent shell casing in the box lid.
And 420?
More spent shell casings around the drag marks.
Thank you. And Exhibit 421?
More spent rifle shell casings with an L scale.
Exhibit 422?
5 spent shell casings with an L scale.
423?
The spent shell casing with the L scale.
424, 5?
A spent shell casing with blood and the L scale. 2 spent shell casings.
And 426?
A spent shell casing with an L scale.
427?
Spent shell casing with an L scale.
And 428? Excuse me.
More spent shell casings with an L scale.
I'm now on 429. What are we looking at here?
3 spent shell casings with an L scale and blood.
Okay, I think we're getting off on our presentation. That would be 430 each. That's 430. Okay. So 430 is 3 spent shell casings,
Correct.
and exhibit 431.
A spent shell casing.
Could you point that out for us? Okay. And did you zero in on that exhibit 432?
I believe so. Yes, I did.
Thank you. And exhibit 433?
Multiple spent shell casings with
So
an
at
L
some
scale.
point, your marker started marking more than one spell casing, is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
Exhibit 434. Would you describe
Yes.
what we see here?
So there's a ruffle bag covered in blood, a spent shell casing with the L scale, and another spent shell casing on top that also has blood.
And exhibit 435.
A magazine right next to right below the rifle.
The rifle's at the top of that.
Yes.
And the next exhibit? I have that as 435.
It's a spent cartridge casing, rifle shell that has an L scale as well.
436. What are we looking at here?
Under the desk, under the chair, right next to the, I guess the arm of the chair, there's another spent shell casing marked as 55.
And 437. Excuse me, 439.
A spent rifle shell casing on the top of the desk.
And now 439.
That's the copy machine.
And on
And
top
there's
of the
a-
copy machine, is there a basket?
On top of the basket, yes, there's one, a basket on top, but there's also a spent shell casing in the, I guess, drawer.
And for the record, that was exhibit 440. And 439,
The spent shell casing inside the basket.
and 441.
That's where I try to mark the spent shell casing inside the cabinet.
And did you zero in on that
Yes, I did.
442?
To the top left corner of the 58.
And 443?
It shows the back of the cartridge where the primer struck where the firing
And did you
pin.
then change locations to the television?
Yes.
Showing you the next exhibit for, I have it as 443. Tell us what we're looking at here.
I can't see. I'm not sure if it's a bullet fragment or what it is next to number 59.
It's obvious, there's obvious not a share casing then. Is that
Correct. There's nothing.
So exhibit 444, close up of that 59 marker.
That's a bullet fragment with an L scale.
And exhibit 445. What does that show us?
Markers 60 and 50, and from this distance I can't.
So have we now moved into collecting fragments
Correct.
in general?
In general.
So exhibit 446,
That's a bullet fragment with an L scale.
and before I get away from casings, let me ask you, your job is just to photograph them, is that correct?
Correct.
But were all of those casings gathered
Yes, they were.
and evaluated and analyzed as to which shots belong to the gunman's versus law enforcement?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
But that was not done by you?
No, it's not. Not at all.
Thank you. Exhibit 446. Excuse me, I guess that's 447. What What are we looking at
It's
here?
a bullet hole through the window.
Is that the same bullet hole that we saw at the very beginning of your presentation?
Yes.
448? What are we looking at here?
That's a, so you can see the torn rope for the blinds, and you also see a bullet impact
Into the blind of
into
that
the
window?
blind. Yes.
Thank you. 449?
It's
What do we
another
see here?
bullet impact, and you can see where the string was also struck by the bullet as well.
And exhibit 450.
That's another bullet impact
To the blind.
through the blind. Correct.
Exhibit 451.
A scale with the bullet impact.
And 452.
A bullet fragment.
And where is it in relationship to those blinds you've just been describing?
It's at the bottom of the blinds.
453.
More bullet fragments. And
Marked
blood.
at 62.
Marked at 62. Yes.
454. Could you describe what we're looking at there?
That was a pool of blood. I see markers 28, 29, 27, and they're moving items out of the way so we can continue our search.
And underneath that sack, does it appear to be another cartridge casing?
Yes, there is.
Stage exhibit 455.
Three spent cartridge casings.
Marked at 63.
Correct.
456.
Spent cartridge casing by number 64.
457.
More of a close-up of a spent shell casing marked 64.
458.
Number 65 in the middle with the bloody tin issue in that picture with blood.
And 459.
A bullet fragment with an L scale.
And that's marked at 65.
That's 65.
460.
Number 66 with a spent cartridge casing.
461.
A close-up of number 66 with a spent shell casing and a L scale.
462.
A spent shell casing marked number 67.
463.
A spent shell casing marked 68.
469. Oh, it's 464. Excuse me, 464. The previous was 463, it's 464.
I see the marker. Until I zoom in, I won't be able to tell what we're looking at.
Okay, let's look at the next one, 465.
It's a bullet fragment. Mark 69.
And exhibit 466.
It's a close-up of the bullet fragment.
467. Could you tell us what that is? Above the marker 70.
The spent shell casing in the seat.
And exhibit 468, is that a close-up of that?
Yes, it is.
469.
Overall of the closet after we started taking everything out and we left the markers there.
So exhibit 470.
A bullet fragment marked 75.
471.
I can see bullet marker 76 and 77.
And Exhibit 472, does that close up on that?
Yes, there's a backpack with the water bottle on the side.
And Exhibit 473 next to the backpack?
That's the bench shell casing.
And 474?
That's the bench shell casing inside the pocket of the backpack.
Exhibit 475?
Bullet fragments marked as 78.
476?
And overall, where we removed the copy machine, there's markers 79 and 80.
And does it also show 79 and 80?
Yes.
Exhibit 477?
A spent shell casing found behind that marker.
478?
It's a box with a spent shell casing inside it, number 81.
And 479?
Bullet fragments. That's a bullet fragment from 81.
480? Is that just a marker that shows another
That's a marker right now.
fragment?
With a fragment problem.
481?
It's another marker with fragments.
And behind number 83, what appears to be, what are those objects behind 83?
It's like an orange, like two orange cups that are like upside down, and there's a bullet impact right there.
Showing you Exhibit 482?
That's the bullet impact with the shell casing and bullet fragment.
Exhibit 483?
Another spent shell casing marked 84.
484?
Where I zoomed in on that spent shell casing.
And 485? Excuse me, I'm going to stop at 484, back up. How long did it take for y'all to process this crime scene?
I was there for 3 days. I was sent back to El Paso, and the rest of the guys stayed there for, I'm assuming, another week is what I think I remember.
And you said something about a Hellfire trigger system.
Yes.
Was it recovered during your photography?
No, it was not.
Was it? Did y'all, after taking the photographs, did y'all review the photographs before leaving the crime scene completely?
Yes, and so Ranger Brian Burney was reading my photographs, and in my overall photographs is where he saw the Hellfire trigger system, and that's how we knew, or that's how they knew to go to that grid in order to recover it.
And so did y'all go back in to recover the Hellfire trigger system?
Yes.
And in general terms, do you know what a Hellfire trigger system is?
It's an attachment that turns your semi-automatic weapon into a full automatic weapon.
It fires much faster
Much faster.
with that trigger system on.
Correct.
Pass the witness.
Okay.
I have a bit, but I think Craig probably did that.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our lunch recess. Let's do 1:45 again, 1:45. See you back. Can everyone let the jury get out so they can get their lunch? Would everyone rise for the jury? Ranger, the rules been invoked. Don't discuss this with anybody.